At the time of writing, the Peter Jackson documentary Get Back has just been released on Disney+. The documentary follows a small band called The Beatles in recording their final album. I've not watched it yet because it's about 100 hours long, but I probably will at some point. But the point I'm going to get at, and I'll admit I'm doing this the long way around, is that the Beatles are a band that have strong links to their hometown. That hometown being the city of Liverpool. Not every artist or band do it, but there are musicians that can generate a sense of environment and a sense of world building. There's a strong sense of geography in the music that they make. And Zuzu's Queensway tunnel can do that around the Mersey area with Liverpool and Birkenhead. Zuzu, from her visual website, is the definition of a millennial artist, a visibly confident front person, songwriter, producer, director, and actor, and comic book illustrator, starring and orchestrating all her videos, recording considerable amounts of her music at her home studio in Liverpool to collecting vintage guitars. And it's worth pointing out that that link to Liverpool is quite strong within the music and this album. Zuzu emphasises her natural accent when she sings, which she was told not to do at the start of her singing career. I find it adds something, and I've often wondered why more people just don't sing with their natural accent. It feels more authentic and interesting, which, when combined with the albumness and subject matter in the lyrics of Queensway Tunnel, it makes the song feel more personable to Zuzu herself. So the sound of this album is quite varied. There's pop throughout, but it delves into indie and goes into rock, and then ventures into like a 1960s psychedelic rock, which, when you consider the album is tied into having Zuzu's hometown as a focus, then you can feel the lineage of the Liverpool music scene echo through out the album. With this lineage in mind, Zuzu applies the nostalgic feel to the lyrical content as well. I mean, The Van is Evil conjures the idea of this 60s rock in the vein of the film Barbarella. Just as you start to think that, she actually references the film in the lyrics. It allows her to start to be nostalgic in life, offering an introspection that can happen when you reach the early 20s, a time where it feels that you're actually older than you actually are. But yet, it's a time when you, and I can remember asking this at this age, remember when you were too young to be nostalgic? A song I particularly love because it makes me depressed and solemn about the fact that time is constantly passing by is the song Toaster. There's a point where you start to realise that you're in an age when gifts start to get a little more practical and a little less fun. This stereotype of getting socks for Christmas applies here. But the song also looks upon the passage of time and links back to the aforementioned nostalgia for the youth and the previous eras gone by. This feels ever so more poignant when you consider what's been happening with the coronavirus and COVID pandemic over the last 21 months.
Hi, this is Jacob from the podcast Hits Don't Lie. My favorite album of the year came out this October, and it's an album by the Swedish singer Agnes. The album is called Magic Still Exists. It is this perfect disco pop experience that Agnes herself has coined the genre as spiritual disco, which is so appropriate. It's all about self-empowerment, lifting yourself up, self-love, and great dance beats the whole time. There's not a track on here that I would skip. It's absolute perfection. I think my favorite song from the album is one titled XX, just 2 X's. It's all about just living your truth, living your best life, and of course has the dance elements. So if anyone is thinking of getting into this album, I suggest hitting that song up and just seeing how you feel about it. Because if that song gets you, then the rest of the album is going to be a treat.
The reflective, introspective nature of the songs have this added weight of longing for not only a life that's changed, but of a world that has changed. The music influences of this album were from several generations ago, but not only did we have a time before COVID, but this was times before the September 11 attacks in New York. This was the time before the Berlin Wall, a bunch of other stuff before then that I tried to figure out, but I can't really remember. The album caps this theme off with the title track of the album, Queensway Tunnel. At the time of writing, I've just recently seen her live, and when she was about to play this song, she did say that she tries not to cry while performing the song. And one of the reasons that I love live music is that you can see the intensity or the reasoning behind the songs being written in the performance. So when I saw her in Birmingham, it helped contextualise the songs on the record and helped me understand them a lot more. This song, the title track, is dedicated to the symbolism of the Queensway Tunnel, exiting one place and arriving in another, changed by the experience.
Hey Matt, this is Trevor from the Album Divers podcast. I love this idea, so much so that I think I'm going to steal it from you, so thanks for sharing your favorite album of 2021 with us. My favorite album this year, I've been joking, is my DiCaprio and the Revenant pick, and that's because The War on Drugs has been in the running for my favorite album of the year pretty much every time they put out a new record, and I've always had them edged out by another album, and frankly, some of those other albums may not have stood up over time like the War on Drugs albums have for me. Their 2020 release is called I Don't Live Here Anymore, And it may not even be my favorite album of theirs, but it's really good, and it's about time they took the top spot for me. So The War on Drugs, I Don't Live Here Anymore is my 2021 album of the year.
Queensway Tunnel is an expressive album and it stands alone in her body of work, with Zuzu not adding any older songs from previous releases on her album. In that way, it reminds me a lot of the comments that I made on the Wolf Alice episode earlier this year, where I mentioned about the baller move, if I can use that term, the baller move, of not including Mona Lisa's Smile in the original UK release, because that was their biggest song at the time, and it just means that you can focus on the songs that are there. So quite a few of the EP songs and singles that she released in the past are not on the album, which again gives it a purposeful identity and doesn't have that thing of just dragging a bunch of tracks and re-recording them from the past in order to try and boost up the album. It means that there's a deliberate attempt to create something unique and of that time, and it has a deliberate themes. Instead of trying to shoehorn themes from previous songs into the theme of Queensway Tunnel, Zuzu has just come in and made Queensway Tunnel. And I've said the word Queensway Tunnel a bit too many times, I think, now, but I hope you understand what I mean by that. It gives the release a unique sense of time and place, and it has the added poignancy throughout with the nostalgic sound, but offers a kind of fun, reflective listen. And again, when you contrast it with current events, it just adds that element of, to use the word again, poignancy. And with that, I have been listening to it quite a lot over the last month or so since it's been released. It's because it's one of those albums that have just appeared near the end of the year, and I think the fact that it's appeared in the year and I've been listening to a lot has probably dictated its inclusion here, but it is generally been a great album, a great listen, and that is why it is one of my favourite albums of 2021.